In the boundless void of space where stars are born and die in silence, an ancient relic drifts aimlessly through the cosmic ocean. It is an escape pod, its hull scarred by the ravages of time and the brutal skirmishes of a war long forgotten. Inside, preserved in the cold embrace of stasis, lies Lieutenant Maya Rodriguez, an ancient super soldier out of time, her fate intertwined with the mysteries of the universe. The pod's journey through the ages comes to an abrupt end when it crosses paths with the Xylocry, a race whose thirst for knowledge is matched only by their disregard for the sanctity of life. At the helm of their formidable research station stands Captain Zorvex, a being whose name is spoken in hushed tones across star systems. The discovery of the human escape pod is a moment of triumph for him, a rare artifact from the era of the Great War. As the Xylocry technicians secure the pod within the bowels of their space station, Zorvex gazes upon it with a mixture of curiosity and greed. Finally, the legends of humanity might yield their secrets to us. He muses aloud, his voice echoing in the sterile chamber. The technicians work diligently to breach the pod's ancient seals, their movements precise, their eyes alight with anticipation. The moment the hatch hisses open, revealing its human occupant, a collective gasp fills the room. Rodriguez lies there, untouched by time, her face a serene mask that belies the warrior spirit within. Zorvex steps closer, his eyes narrowing as he examines Rodriguez. "So, this is a human," he remarks, a hint of disdain in his voice. "Fragile. How did such creatures come to dominate the galaxy?" A technician, eager to impress, chimes in. "Perhaps we will find that their strength lies not in their flesh, but in their minds, Captain." "Or their hearts," another adds, only to earn a withering glance from Zorvex. "We shall see if there's any truth to that sentimental drivel," he retorts. Rodriguez is carefully extracted from the pod and transported to the research facility. As she is placed into the examination chamber, the stasis field begins to dissipate, heralding the end of her long slumber. The first to meet her gaze as her eyes flutter open is Dr. Phelan, a Xylocry scientist of some renown. "Welcome back to the living, Lieutenant Rodriguez," Phelan says, a wry smile playing on his lips. "You have been asleep for a very long time." Rodriguez's response is a groan, her body racked with the discomfort of reanimation. "Where am I?" she manages to whisper, her voice hoarse. "You are among the stars, Lieutenant," Phelan replies, his tone softening. "Far from home, but not forgotten." Zorvex, who had been watching from the shadows, steps forward. "Your home is a memory, human. You belong to us now." Rodriguez's eyes narrow as she takes in her surroundings, her mind racing to catch up with her predicament. Despite her confusion, a spark of defiance ignites within her. "Humans don't belong to anyone," she retorts, her voice gaining strength. A murmur of amusement ripples through the Xylocry observers. Zorvex, however, does not share their mirth. "We shall see about that, Lieutenant," he says. As the last vestiges of stasis fog cling to her consciousness, Maya Rodriguez finds herself in the grip of a reality far removed from the battlefields of her past. The chamber around her buzzes with the sterile, cold precision of alien technology, a stark contrast to the chaos of war she remembers. Her senses sharpen, honed by years of combat, immediately taking in the array of instruments and the alien figures that loom over her. Dr. Phelan, observing her, notes the quick flicker of awareness in her eyes. "Remarkable," he mutters, almost to himself, as he watches her resilience manifest. No mere creature withstands the ravages of time and space with such defiance. Rodriguez, still grappling with the weight of her eyelids, locks onto Phelan's figure. "Where am I?" she repeats, her voice stronger now, a testament to her rapidly returning strength. "You're aboard our station, Lieutenant. A guest, of sorts," Phelan replies, his voice laced with a curiosity that bordered on respect. "A prisoner, you mean?" Rodriguez counters swiftly, her mind clearing with each passing second. Across the room, a technician chuckles, earning a sharp glance from Rodriguez. "She's got spirit, this one," he comments, unable to mask his admiration. Phelan, ignoring the exchange, continues. "Your survival is of great interest to us, Lieutenant Rodriguez. Humanity's resilience is perplexing." Rodriguez sits up, her movement still sluggish but gaining fluidity. Humanity doesn't give up easily, she states, her gaze unwavering. Especially not me. The room falls silent, the Xylocry staff exchanging uneasy glances. It was clear that the human before them was not just a relic of the past, but a living embodiment of the resilience and tenacity that had made her species legendary. As Rodriguez's strength returns, so does her awareness of her predicament. Surrounded by beings that viewed her as little more than a specimen, she understood the gravity of her situation. Yet, fear was a luxury she could not afford, not when the legacy of humanity rested on her shoulders. Phelan, sensing her resolve, nods slightly. Your determination is commendable, Lieutenant. But it is also troubling. You are alone, far from any who could aid you. Rodriguez smirks, a glint of defiance in her eyes. I'm never alone. I carry the spirit of humanity within me. And trust me, that's more than enough. The exchange is interrupted by the arrival of Captain Zorvex, his presence commanding silence. How quaint. The human speaks of spirit, he observes, his tone dripping with disdain. But spirit will not save you here. Rodriguez meets his gaze, her posture straightening. It saved me before, and it'll do so again. Zorvex studies her for a moment longer before turning to leave, his parting words hanging in the air. We shall see, Lieutenant Rodriguez. We shall see. As the door slides shut behind him, Rodriguez takes a deep breath, steeling herself for what was to come. The laboratory of the Xylocry Research Station, a nexus of alien science and ambition, becomes the crucible in which Maya Rodriguez is tested. Here, amid the cold gleam of instruments and the hum of advanced machinery, the depths of human potential are plumbed by curious, if not ethically dubious, minds. As days meld into one another, Maya is subjected to a barrage of tests. The Xylocry, with their advanced technology, probe the limits of her physical endurance, her mental acuity, and the mysterious wellspring of resilience that seems to define her very being. Yet, with each experiment, Maya's innate human ingenuity and adaptability begin to shine, turning the tables on her captors in small but significant ways. During a particularly grueling test designed to measure her cognitive flexibility under stress, Maya astounds her observers by not only completing the task, but by devising a more efficient method to do so on the fly. Dr. Phelan, overseeing the test, can't hide his admiration. Ingenious, he concedes, jotting down notes with a frenzied pace. Your ability to adapt and overcome is unprecedented. Rodriguez, catching her breath, shoots back with a weary smile. Necessity is the mother of invention. You guys should try it sometime instead of relying on all this. She gestures at the surrounding tech. A technician, unable to suppress a snort of laughter, quickly turns it into a cough under Phelan's sharp glance. Indeed, Lieutenant. Phelan responds, the hint of a smile tugging at his lips. Your resourcefulness is duly noted. It's not just her mental acuity that baffles the Xylocry, but her physical resilience as well. In tests meant to push her to her limits, Maya demonstrates not only exceptional strength and stamina, but an uncanny ability to recover from injuries at a rate that perplexes her captors. Your healing capabilities are beyond our models, Phelan remarks during a session, observing the rapid closure of a superficial wound. Yeah, well, we humans get a lot of practice, Maya quips, examining the now-healed skin with a mixture of pain and pride. You learn to bounce back fast. But it's in the quiet moments, when the tests are done and she's left alone in her containment cell, that Maya's true strength emerges. It's there, in the solitude, that she plots her escape, her mind always working, always seeking a way out. She studies the routines of her captors, memorizes the layout of the lab from glimpses caught during her transfer from one test to another, and begins to fashion makeshift tools from whatever is left within her reach. One evening, as Phelan visits her cell under the pretense of delivering her meal, he finds her sitting cross-legged on the floor, her demeanor calm, almost meditative. You seem quite at peace, Lieutenant, given your circumstances, he comments, setting the tray down. Rodriguez looks up, her eyes sharp, her will unbroken. Being at peace isn't about the absence of conflict, she says, her voice steady. It's about being prepared for it. And trust me, I'm always prepared. Felon studies her for a moment, struck by the depth of her resolve. I believe you are, Lieutenant. I truly do. He leaves the cell, the door sliding shut with a hiss, leaving Maya to her thoughts. In the dim light of her cell, Maya Rodriguez sat in contemplation, the gears of her mind turning with the precision of a well-oiled machine. Her time among the Xylocri, though fraught with challenge, had offered her something invaluable: insight. She had learned their patterns, understood their hubris, and now she was ready to exploit it. Her plan was a tapestry of observation and improvisation, woven from the threads of her captors' predictable routines and the subtle weaknesses she had spotted in their security. It required timing, precision, and a bit of the unexpected, qualities that humanity had honed over millennia of survival. As the hour of her plan drew near, Rodriguez began her preparations. She had fashioned a rudimentary tool from a piece of metal she had managed to conceal after one of her physical resilience tests. It was crude but effective, embodying the essence of human ingenuity, making the most of what little you have. The first step was to escape her cell during the brief window when the guards changed shifts. The Xylocri, for all their advanced technology, were creatures of habit, and their arrogance blinded them to the possibility of a human outsmarting them. Rodriguez watched from the corner of her eye as the guard outside her cell glanced at his timepiece, signaling the impending shift change. She tensed, ready to act. As the door slid open for her evening meal delivery, a task beneath the notice of the higher-ranking Xylocri, she made her move. With a swift motion, she used her makeshift tool to jam the cell door mechanism, preventing it from closing. The guard, a low-ranking technician unaccustomed to direct confrontation, barely had time to register her action before Rodriguez was upon him. A swift strike killed him instantly. "Don't take it personally," she whispered, as she stepped over him, her voice a blend of apology and determination. "Survival's in my blood." The corridor outside her cell was dimly lit, the lights pulsing with a rhythm that matched the station's heartbeat. Rodriguez moved with purpose, her every step silent, her senses on high alert. Her next objective was the control room. She had gleaned its location from overheard conversations and a map displayed during one of her tests. It was the nerve center of the station, and if she could reach it, she could manipulate the station's systems to her advantage. As she navigated the maze-like corridors, she encountered a pair of Xylocri scientists, deep in conversation about an experiment. They barely had time to register her presence before she was upon them. Her hands moving with practiced efficiency, their necks snapped in an instant. "Sorry, gentlemen," Rodriguez said, stepping past their slumped forms. "Science project's on hold." Reaching the control room, she found it guarded by two of Zorvex's elite soldiers. Rodriguez knew that a direct confrontation was out of the question. She needed to outthink them. Retreating into the shadows, she observed their movements, waiting for an opening. It came in the form of a routine inspection, a moment when one guard stepped away, leaving the other momentarily isolated. Rodriguez used the opportunity to create a diversion, knocking loose a panel down the corridor with a well-aimed throw of her makeshift tool. As the remaining guard stepped away to investigate, she slipped into the control room, her heart racing. Inside, she was met with a bank of controls, a dizzying array of alien technology. But Rodriguez was undaunted. She had watched the technicians during her captivity, memorizing sequences and commands. With a few deft inputs, she initiated a sequence that unlocked the station's docking bays and sent a false security alert to the opposite end of the station. It was a gamble, but if the Xylocri were as predictable as she believed, it would draw the majority of the security forces away, leaving her path to an escape craft clear. Rodriguez couldn't help but smile as she saw her plan unfold on the monitors before her. "Never underestimate a human," she murmured, her voice a mix of triumph and resolve. Her escape was more than a personal victory. It was a declaration, a proof of human resilience and ingenuity. As she made her way to the docking bay, Rodriguez knew that her actions would send ripples through the galaxy. The corridors of the Xylocri research station hummed with tension, an orchestrated chaos ensuing as Maya enacted her plan. The false security alert she had triggered was a masterstroke, drawing the station's defenders away from her path to freedom. Yet even with the odds tipped in her favor, the escape was far from assured. The Xylocri were not to be underestimated, their technological prowess a constant threat. Rodriguez moved with a predator's grace, her every step a testament to years of combat training. Her mind raced, plotting and replotting her route always 3 steps ahead. The path to the docking bay was a labyrinth, but to her, it was just another puzzle to solve, a challenge to overcome. As she rounded a corner, she found herself face to face with a pair of Xylocree guards, their sleek armor gleaming ominously in the low light. They were young, inexperienced, their postures betraying a hint of uncertainty. Rodriguez didn't hesitate. With a fluid motion born of necessity, she disarmed the first guard, using his own weapon to kill his companion. Again. Nothing personal? She quipped, her voice a mix of apology and resolve as she dragged their corpses out of sight. Just need to borrow this. She gestured at the stolen weapon, a sleek piece of alien engineering now at her disposal. However, it felt like a toy versus the weapons she was accustomed to. Continuing her advance, Rodriguez relied on her training to navigate the remaining obstacles. She encountered automated defense systems, their deadly precision a formidable barrier. Yet, where the Xylocree saw technology as an invincible shield, Rodriguez saw opportunity. Her approach to the docking bay was a study in stealth and strategy. The bay was lightly guarded, most of its defenders drawn away by the diversion she had created. Those few who remained were quickly and efficiently taken out. Inside the docking bay, rows of sleek alien ships awaited, their designs foreign, yet oddly intuitive. Rodriguez's gaze settled on a small, nimble craft, its lines suggesting speed and agility. It was perfect for her needs. As she approached the craft, a voice crackled over the station's intercom. "Lieutenant Rodriguez!" came the cold, unmistakable tone of Captain Zorvex. "Your efforts are futile. Surrender, and your end will be swift." Rodriguez paused, her hand on the hatch of the escape craft. She turned to face the nearest security camera, a defiant smile playing on her lips. "You know, I was hoping you'd say that," she replied, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "It means I've got you exactly where I want you." With a swift motion, she sealed the hatch behind her and initiated the launch sequence. The craft hummed to life, its engines a low growl that promised escape. Rodriguez's fingers danced over the controls, a quick study of the alien interface. As the ship broke free of the station's gravity, she couldn't resist one last jab. "Tell your guards thanks for the workout," she transmitted, her voice a beacon of defiance. "I needed a good stretch." The escape craft shot into the vastness of space, leaving the Xylocree research station and its bewildered inhabitants behind. She now was a vanguard of humanity, a lone warrior proving that even in the darkest corners of the galaxy, the human spirit could not be quelled. In the vast, uncharted reaches of space, Maya Rodriguez's escape craft cut a solitary figure against the backdrop of stars. But freedom was more than the absence of physical constraints. It was the opportunity to fight back, to turn the hunter into the hunted. And so, with the cold precision of a seasoned guerrilla fighter, Rodriguez set her sights on the Xylocree, her former captors, now her prey. The Xylocree research station, a hub of alien technology and scientific ambition, had become a symbol of Rodriguez's imprisonment, a monument to her resilience. It was there she chose to strike first, employing hit-and-run tactics that sowed confusion and fear among its inhabitants. Utilizing the stolen Xylocree ship's advanced cloaking technology, Rodriguez managed to slip back into the station's vicinity, undetected. Then, like a shadow, she infiltrated the outer decks, planting the charges that she found on her many excursions into the station, with timers set to the erratic rhythm of chaos. Each explosion was a message, a declaration that the legend of humanity was far from a myth, and it walked among them, vengeful and indomitable. Her attacks were not random. Each target was chosen for its strategic value, its ability to cripple but not destroy, to demoralize but not annihilate. Rodriguez was not a butcher. She was a warrior. In the aftermath of each strike, as the Xylocree scrambled to respond to the unseen threat, Rodriguez's presence became as palpable as the vacuum of space itself. Whispers of a ghost, a specter of vengeance, began to circulate among the crew, their once unshakable confidence shaken to its core. "Did you hear that?" one jittery technician asked his companion as they patrolled a dimly lit corridor, the silence echoing with the ghosts of Rodriguez's exploits. "It's just the station settling," his companion replied. though his voice betrayed a hint of doubt. But Rodriguez was no mere ghost. She was flesh and blood, a fact she made sure to remind them of during her next assault. Striking at the heart of the station's communication array, she left a simple, powerful message scrawled in the common tongue of the galaxy: humanity endures. Her actions, while daring, were not without purpose. Each maneuver was designed to fracture the morale of the Xylocri, to demonstrate the superiority of human strategy and resolve. And it worked. The once orderly ranks of the Xylocri were now riddled with doubt, their movements hesitant, their orders questioned. As Rodriguez watched from the shadows, a small smile tugged at the corner of her mouth. The Xylocri had underestimated humanity, had seen them as relics of a bygone era, easy prey for their scientific curiosity. But Rodriguez was proving with each calculated strike that humanity was not a species to be trifled with. Her guerrilla war, fought from the shadows, was a testament to the ingenuity and adaptability of humans. It was a reminder that, even when faced with the vastness of space and the might of alien empires, a single human with the courage to fight could change the course of history. As she prepared for her next move, Rodriguez knew that her battle was far from over. But with each victory, no matter how small, she was writing a new chapter in the saga of humanity, a chapter where humans were not mere survivors but warriors, capable of facing the darkness and emerging victorious. Amid the chaos of her guerrilla campaign, Maya Rodriguez found herself diving deeper into the heart of the Xylocri research station. Each strike, each maneuver against her alien adversaries, peeled back layers of their once impenetrable security, revealing the station's vulnerabilities like cracks in a dam. Rodriguez, ever the opportunist, leveraged these weaknesses, her human ingenuity lighting the way through the dark corridors of alien territory. One such vulnerability was the station's reliance on a centralized power grid, a critical system that, if compromised, could cripple the Xylocri's operational capabilities. With the precision of a chess master moving her pieces into place, Rodriguez laid her plans to exploit this flaw, turning the station's own design against its inhabitants. Her strategy was simple, yet bold. Infiltrate the main power control room and reroute the energy flow, creating a blackout in key sectors of the station. This would not only sow further confusion, but also hamper the Xylocri's ability to mount a coordinated defense against her. Under the cover of artificial night, Rodriguez moved. The darkness was an old friend, a companion of her days in the trenches of distant, forgotten worlds. She navigated the maze-like structure of the station with ease, her path illuminated by the soft glow of her makeshift tools and the fire of determination in her heart. As she approached the power control room, she encountered a squad of guards. Security must have been upgraded, she thought, their forms silhouetted against the faint light seeping from under the door. Rodriguez paused, a plan forming in her mind. Rather than confront them directly, she opted for deception, a tactic as old as warfare itself. Using a fragment of metal, she created a series of noises, mimicking the sound of malfunctioning equipment. As the guards moved to investigate, Rodriguez slipped past them, a ghost in the machinery. Inside the control room, she found herself face to face with the heart of the station's power system, its panels alive with alien script and pulsing lights. With a deep breath, she set to work, her fingers dancing over the controls with the confidence of one who had faced down death and emerged unscathed. Her efforts were met with immediate success. One by one, the lights in the station's critical sectors flickered and died, plunging them into darkness. Then she destroyed all the control panels so they couldn't quickly reverse what she did. Rodriguez couldn't help but smile at the irony of it all. The Xylocri, with all their advanced technology, brought low by a single human exploiting a basic flaw in their infrastructure. As she made her escape from the control room, Rodriguez could hear the chaos erupting throughout the station. Alarms blared, voices shouted in confusion, and the sound of scrambling feet filled the air. The tide was turning, and it was all thanks to human ingenuity and the ability to find opportunity in adversity. Yet, even as she celebrated her small victory, Rodriguez knew that her battle was far from over. The Xylocri were a formidable enemy, and they would not take kindly to being outwitted by a human. But for now, she reveled in the knowledge that she had struck a significant blow, one that would echo through the corridors of the station for a long time. Now with the Xylocri research station crippled and in chaos wrought by her guerrilla warfare, Maya prepared for her ultimate challenge, a confrontation with Captain Zorvex. Zorvex, the mastermind behind the station's scientific endeavors, had viewed the human as little more than a curiosity, her physical and mental capacities mere data points to be catalogued and analyzed. But Rodriguez, with her relentless spirit and tactical brilliance, had shattered that perception. As Rodriguez made her way to the central command hub, where Zorvex awaited, she could not help but reflect on the journey that had led her to this moment. Each step through the dimly lit corridors was a step closer to reclaiming her freedom, to proving that humanity's spirit could not be contained by walls, nor could it be quantified by alien intellect. The command hub, a vast chamber dominated by a panoramic view of the stars beyond, was eerily silent as she entered. Zorvex stood at the far end, his imposing figure framed against the backdrop of space, the weight of his gaze fixed upon her. "So the human has come," Zorvex's voice echoed in the chamber, a mixture of admiration and disdain. "You have caused quite the disruption, Lieutenant Rodriguez. A commendable effort for a species deemed extinct." Rodriguez met his gaze, her posture unyielding. "We're full of surprises," she replied, her voice steady. "You think you know us, but you've only scratched the surface." Zorvex, unfazed, activated a console, bringing to life the room's advanced defense systems. "Your tenacity is admirable, but ultimately futile. This station, this technology, it is beyond your understanding." With a defiant smirk, Rodriguez countered, "Maybe, but understanding isn't always necessary. Sometimes you just need to find the off switch." The ensuing battle was a clash of wits and wills. Zorvex unleashed the full might of the station's defenses, automated turrets and drones designed to neutralize any threat. Yet, for every machine that sought to end her, Rodriguez found a counter, exploiting blind spots and weaknesses with the precision of a seasoned warrior. As the last of the drones clattered to the ground, disabled by her cunning, Zorvex was left with no choice but to confront her directly. The alien captain, for all his reliance on technology, was not without his own combat prowess. Yet, as they faced off, it was clear that the battle was not just physical. It was a battle of ideologies, of human spirit against alien cold logic. The duel was intense, each exchange a blur of motion and strategy. Rodriguez, however, wielded more than just her training. She fought with the weight of humanity's legacy behind her, each strike fueled by the collective hope and resilience of her species. In the end, it was Rodriguez who stood victorious, Zorvex at her mercy. The alien captain defeated could only stare in disbelief as the human before him dismantled the control console, effectively neutralizing the station's threat. "You may have technology," Rodriguez said, her voice echoing in the now silent chamber. "But we have something you'll never understand. We have heart, and we never give up. That's what makes us human." As she turned her back on Zorvex, leaving him alive to contemplate his defeat, Rodriguez couldn't help but feel a surge of pride. With Captain Zorvex defeated and the station controls in ruins, Maya turned her attention to her final task aboard the Zolokri research station, ensuring that the facility could no longer be a bastion of fear and a source of suffering. Her plan was to sabotage the station's core systems, rendering the facility inoperable. It was a task fraught with danger, but Rodriguez was no stranger to adversity. As she set charges at critical junctures, each explosive device was a testament to the struggles she had faced, a physical manifestation of her resolve. "For every life you've taken in the name of science," she murmured to the silent corridors, "consider this recompense." With the station's doom quietly ticking away in the background, Rodriguez made her way to the docking bay, her previous stolen ship awaiting her return. As she powered up the ship, the station's alarms finally began to wail, a delayed realization of its impending fate. Rodriguez couldn't suppress a wry smile at the sound. "Better late than never," she quipped to the empty cockpit, her hands deftly navigating the unfamiliar controls. The ship responded with a thrum of alien technology coming to life, and one jury-rigged ancient stolen cryopod hauled on board beeping to life. It was ready to carry its new master to freedom. As she guided the ship out of the docking bay, the research station receding into the distance behind her, Rodriguez felt a weight lift from her shoulders. She had fought not just for her survival, but for the vindication of human dignity against those who would see them as mere subjects for experimentation. The sabotage of the station was her parting gift to the Zolokri, a reminder that humanity would not quietly endure the indignities of oppression. It was a declaration that the human spirit, with its capacity for resilience and its insatiable desire for freedom, was a force to be reckoned with. As the stolen ship pierced the veil of space, leaving the crippled station to its fate, Rodriguez set her sights on the vast expanse ahead. In the silence of space, with only the stars as her witness, Rodriguez made a solemn vow. She would carry the story of her struggle back to whatever remnants of humanity existed in the galaxy, a beacon of hope for all those who believed themselves forgotten. Years later, as the ship came out of hyperspace and the cryopod initiated its automated wake-up sequence, Maya finally got home, as the blue marble that was Earth came into view, a sight that stirred emotions deep within her. The planet, once ravaged by war and desolation, now shimmered with signs of life and reconstruction. As she entered Earth's atmosphere, the ship's communication system crackled to life, her unexpected arrival catching the attention of Earth's defense network. Unidentified vessel, you are entering restricted airspace. Identify yourself. The voice was firm, laced with authority yet unmistakably human. This is Lieutenant Maya Rodriguez returning home, she responded, her voice a mixture of pride and relief. There was a pause, a moment of disbelief, before the voice returned, softer now, tinged with awe. Lieutenant Rodriguez, the hero of the Great War? Your signal is being redirected to the Global Command. Stand by for clearance. Landing amidst the ruins of what once was a battlefield, Rodriguez stepped out of the alien craft, her gaze sweeping over the landscape. The world she had left behind had changed, evolved in her absence. She was met by a delegation, a mix of military and civilian leaders, their expressions ranging from incredulity to reverence. Lieutenant Rodriguez, your survival is nothing short of miraculous. The tales of your exploits have spread far and wide. One of the officials, a general, extended his hand in welcome. Rodriguez shook it, a smile touching her lips. Seems I've missed quite a bit, she remarked, her gaze taking in the advanced technology and the vibrancy of life around her. Her return was more than a homecoming. It was a catalyst, a spark that ignited the collective will of humanity to rise, to rebuild, and to reclaim their place in the stars. The Mecron fleet hung in the void like a swarm of silver wasps, their sleek chrome ships glinting menacingly in the harsh sunlight as they encircled Earth. Below, cities were illuminated not by the gentle dusk, but by the violent explosions that ripped through historic streets and modern skyscrapers alike. The air vibrated with the sound of alarms and the roar of engines, punctuated by the distant, relentless drum of Mecron bombardments. Aboard the Neotech Indomitable, the bridge was a cavern of shadow and light, screens flickering with the grim updates from the surface. Lieutenant Maya Rodriguez stood by the panoramic window, her eyes tracing the arcs of fire that descended upon her home planet. Her jaw was set, her hands clenched at her sides, not out of fear, but a resolute determination that hardened with each explosion that scarred the Earth. Captain James Eldridge surveyed the room, his gaze lingering on each of his officers in turn. "We're not going to let them have their way," he declared, his voice cutting through the tense murmur of his crew. "Not while we have fight left in us." Rodriguez turned from the window, her expression steely. "We'll give them a fight they won't forget, sir," she responded, the resolve in her voice echoing Eldridge's sentiment. At the strategy table, Dr. Lisa Huang was hastily setting up a simulation of the Mecron fleet's possible next moves, her fingers flying over the holographic controls. "Their pattern is almost algorithmic. If we can anticipate their next sequence, we might find an opening," she explained without looking up, fully absorbed in her task. Chief Engineer Tomasz Nowak, who had been quietly recalibrating a device that looked more like a relic from an ancient space arsenal, chimed in without diverting his attention. "And if brains don't work, I've got a few old-school tricks that just might do the trick," he said, a hint of a grin playing at the corner of his mouth despite the dire circumstances. Eldridge nodded, appreciative of the levity. "Brains and brawn, people. That's how we'll beat them." He turned his attention back to the main display, where the orbiting Mecron units continued their relentless assault. "Rodriguez, I want you on the primary assault. You're boarding one of their command ships. It's risky, but we need someone with your nerve and cyborg power to pull this off." "Yes, sir," Rodriguez replied instantly, her voice void of hesitation. Her mind was already racing through the scenarios, the pathways of attack and retreat, the layout of enemy ships she had memorized. Eldridge's eyes met hers, an unspoken understanding passing between them. This was not just another mission, it was a chance to tilt the balance, to make a statement that humanity would not yield so easily. As the crew of the Indomitable prepared for what could be their final gambit, the Earth continued to bear the brunt of the Mechron onslaught. Yet, amidst the chaos and the carnage, a pulse of unyielding human spirit began to resonate, a signal that despite the darkness, the light of human resilience burned fiercely still. Rodriguez looked once more at the beleaguered planet below, her resolve solidifying into something unbreakable. They were outnumbered and outgunned, but they were far from outmatched. She turned away from the view, her steps firm and sure as she headed to prepare for the mission. Earth needed a hero, and she was ready to be just that. In the dimly lit confines of the briefing room aboard the Indomitable, Maya stood with her arms crossed, her gaze fixed on the object at the center of the room. It was sleek, ominous, a tube large enough to hold a person, fitted with various technological appendages that made it look like a creature from a deep-sea nightmare. This was the boarding torpedo, the latest brainchild of Chief Engineer Nowak. "Now, this is not your standard fare for boarding enemy ships," Nowak began, his voice filled with a mixture of pride and caution as he gestured towards the torpedo. "It's stealthier, faster, and packs a bigger punch, designed to penetrate the Mechron's outer defenses like a hot knife through butter." Maya circled the torpedo, her eyes assessing its structure and the placement of its thrusters and stealth panels. "How fast are we talking?" she asked, her tone indicating both curiosity and the weight of the responsibility she was about to take on. "Fast enough to make your last roller coaster ride seem like a lazy river float," Nowak replied with a smirk. "Once you're in, it's all manual. You'll need to navigate through their defenses using minimal guidance systems. We can't risk electronic emissions. They'd pick up on it," Huang interjected, her eyes flicking between her datapad and Maya. "I've uploaded the schematics of their command ship into the torpedo's database." Maya nodded, absorbing every piece of information. "What about when I get inside? What's the play?" Eldridge stepped forward, his expression serious. "Plant the charges around their antimatter reactor. You take out their power, and their command ship becomes a floating junkyard. It's a precision strike, needs to be swift and silent." "I understand," Maya replied, the gravity of the mission settling in her voice. The room fell silent for a moment, the magnitude of the task dawning on everyone present. Maya broke the stillness, turning to Nowak. "And if things go south?" "Well," Nowak began, scratching his head. "I guess you improvise. There's an eject pod included. Not the most comfortable ride, but it'll get you back out in a pinch." "Comfort's the least of my worries," Maya chuckled, her demeanor lightening the room's tense air. "It's the getting out part that counts." The group moved closer around the torpedo, going over every detail, every possible scenario. They discussed entry points, navigation paths, and contingency plans. Through it all, Maya's confidence never wavered. If anything, her resolve only hardened. She was not just fighting for herself or the crew, but for Earth, for humanity. As the briefing drew to a close, Maya stayed back to go over the torpedo's controls once more. Eldridge watched her for a moment, then approached quietly. "Rodriguez, you don't have to do this," he said gently. "We could still find another way. Maybe—" Maya cut him off, her gaze steady. "No, Captain. We've run out of time for maybes. It's now or never, and I'm ready. I believe in this." She patted the side of the torpedo. "And I believe in us." Eldridge nodded, placing a firm hand on her shoulder. "Then let's make sure it counts. We're all counting on you." With a final check of her gear, Maya proceeded to the launch bay. The walk through the corridors of the Indomitable was a solitary journey, each step echoing softly against the metal floors. Crew members she passed nodded their support, some offering a thumbs up, others a solemn salute. Reaching the launch bay, Maya looked over the boarding torpedo one last time. She traced her hand along its surface, the metal cold and unyielding under her touch, much like the resolve that filled her. She then climbed inside, her body fitting snugly into the custom seat, surrounded by controls and screens that would soon guide her on her most perilous journey. Outside the torpedo, Nowak and a team of technicians made final adjustments, their movements precise and methodical. Eldridge's voice crackled through the comms inside the cockpit, his tone a mixture of command and concern. "Rodriguez, you're the spearhead of humanity's hope. Bring that ship down." Maya strapped herself in, her fingers dancing over the controls, setting them just as she had practiced countless times. "Copy that, Captain. It's time to remind them why you don't mess with Earth." As the bay doors began to close, sealing her inside her metallic steed, Maya took a deep, simulated breath as a heavy cyborg she didn't need to breathe, the gravity of her task settling in her chest. But it was matched, beat for beat, by the thrumming pulse of human spirit, fierce and unquenchable. She was ready. The boarding torpedo lay like a dormant beast in the launch bay of the Indomitable, its sleek, dark form almost absorbing the harsh white light that flooded the space. Inside, Maya sat enveloped by the silence, her fingers poised over the controls, her breathing steady despite the adrenaline that pulsed through her veins. With a final confirmation from the control tower, the launch sequence initiated, a low hum vibrating through the hull of the torpedo as it came to life. The clamps released with a sharp clank, and Maya felt a momentary weightlessness as the torpedo was ejected into the cold, unforgiving expanse of space. Outside, the stars were blurred streaks against the black canvas of the universe, the Earth a swirling marble of blues and greens far below. Ahead, the Mecron perimeter loomed, a network of defense satellites and patrolling drones, moving in precise, predictable patterns. Maya's hands moved with practiced ease, adjusting the thrusters just so, the torpedo slipping through the vastness like a shadow. The stealth technology Nowak had integrated into its design was doing its job perfectly. The usual radar pings and sensor sweeps slid off its surface without a trace. As she maneuvered closer to the Mecron defenses, Maya's training took over. She recalled every simulation, every piece of advice Huang had given her about the enemy's tactics. The Mecrons relied on algorithms, predictable to a fault, and she used that to her advantage, calculating each move to keep within their blind spots. Her focus was absolute, yet her mind couldn't help but drift momentarily to the crew she had left behind. She could almost hear Nowak's voice, half-jokingly reminding her to not scratch the paint off the fancy new toy. She allowed herself a brief smile. There was comfort in remembering their faces, their faith in her. The interior of the torpedo was cramped, the air cool and recycled, but Maya felt a surge of warmth, a reminder of what she was fighting for. Her hands nudging the controls, making minute adjustments as she edged ever closer to the heart of the Mecron fleet. The first major obstacle was a cluster of surveillance drones, orbiting a Mecron cruiser like mechanical vultures. Maya dipped lower, using a debris field for cover, the metallic remnants of a previous battle providing a macabre form of camouflage. She held her breath, counting the seconds as she glided silently past the drones, her presence undetected. Once clear, Maya allowed herself a moment of relief, her gaze locked on the distant silhouette of the Mecron command ship. It was larger than any ship she had ever seen, bristling with antennas and gun ports, a fortress among the stars. But not impregnable. "Almost there," she whispered to herself, her voice a low murmur in the quiet of the torpedo. She plotted her final approach, her eyes scanning the readouts, making sure she remained unseen. The last few kilometers were the most harrowing. Each meter gained a silent victory of human cunning over robotic predictability. Maya's training, humanity's ingenuity, and a good dose of sheer nerve had brought her this far. Now, it was just a matter of delivering on the promise she had made. As the command ship grew larger in her view, dominating the viewport, Maya prepared for the final phase. She was no longer just a soldier on a mission. She was Earth's avenger, the spear tip of humanity's defiance. With a steady hand and a resolute heart, she guided the torpedo into the hull of the giant ship. The hull of the Mecron command ship gave way to the torpedo, breaching every single layer of armor it had until it came to a stop. It then pretended to be a dud, a torpedo that never exploded. As she eased out of the boarding torpedo, the silence was almost deafening, broken only by the soft hiss of her own systems and the muffled clinks of her tools. The corridors of the ship were a stark, unending gray, lined with conduits and pulsing lights, their rhythm steady and predictable. Maya moved with a ghost's grace, her steps silent, dampened by stealth systems, Her presence just another shadow among the many that filled the vessel. She checked her wrist device, a compact map displaying her route and highlighting the reactor's location, a beacon in the maze of sameness. Each intersection posed a risk of exposure, and the first real challenge came swiftly. A patrol unit, its movements crisp and devoid of any hesitation, rounded a corner unexpectedly. Maya pressed herself against the wall, cloaked by the low light, her heart pounding in her ears. The patrol passed by without a flicker of awareness, its sensors not designed to pick up the subtleties of human stealth. With the path clear, Maya continued, her progress a testament to human adaptability. Where the Mecrons relied on pre-programmed routes and responses, she improvised, using every tool at her disposal. Navigating through the ship, Maya reached the first critical juncture where she needed to set charges. The site was an auxiliary control panel, crucial for the ship's internal communications. Setting the explosive was a delicate task, her hands steady as she attached the device, her mind alert for any sign of discovery. The charge set, she activated a timer, its countdown silent, its threat lethal. As she moved deeper into the bowels of the ship, the challenges grew. At one point, a door refused to open. Resourcefulness turned into necessity as brute force took over. Maya used her hydraulic muscles to pry it open, the metal doors groaning under the unnatural force. "It's not subtle, but it'll do," she muttered to herself, pushing through into a new section of the ship, closer to the reactor. Here, the energy was palpable, the air thrumming with the power that coursed through the ship's veins. She could almost feel the hum of the reactor calling to her, each step drawing her closer to her objective, and to danger. The corridors here were more heavily patrolled, and Maya had to blend more aggressive maneuvers with her stealth. Finally, the massive doors to the reactor chamber loomed ahead, daunting in their scale, but no match for her. Maya paused, taking a moment to assess her surroundings and plan her approach. The weight of her mission pressed down on her, but so did the determination to see it through. Maya stood before the reactor chamber, its doors imposing yet silently inviting, promising both the potential for victory and the peril of ultimate detection. She placed her palm against the cool metal, feeling the subtle vibrations of energy pulsing just beyond. This was the heart of the Mecron ship, and she was about to send a shockwave through its system. Drawing a compact device from her belt, Maya attached it to the door's keypad. The small screen on the device flickered as it interfaced with the Mecron technology. "Come on, work your magic," she murmured, watching as sequences of code scrolled rapidly across the display. Then the door clicked, a sound almost inaudible yet thunderous in its implications. She pushed against it, the metal yielding as she slipped through into the reactor room. The chamber was vast, dominated by the reactor core, a pulsing orb of energy suspended by magnetic fields. Its power was almost beautiful, ethereal in its glow, but Maya knew the destruction it could unleash. She didn't have long to admire the view. The room's security systems were more sophisticated than any she had encountered so far. Laser grids crisscrossed the access paths to the core, and sensor drones hovered, their movements sporadic and unpredictable. Maya pulled out another device, this one a small, spherical emitter. She placed it on the ground, tapping its surface twice. It began to pulse, emitting a series of data frequencies that mimicked Mecron infantry crossing the room. With the path cleared, she advanced, each step measured, each breath calculated. She reached the core, setting up her charges around its base. Her hands moved with a surgeon's precision, the stakes of her operation etched in every line of her focused expression. As she armed the last of the explosives, Maya allowed herself the briefest moment of quiet. "For Earth," she whispered, before stepping back into the shadows. With the explosives set, Maya retraced her steps, retrieving her emitter and navigating back through the laser grids. Her escape from the reactor chamber was as smooth as her entry, the door sliding shut with a silent, promising thud behind her. As Maya moved back through the corridors, the weight of what was coming next settled on her shoulders, a mix of dread and anticipation. She had set the stage for a monumental upset, a critical blow to the Mecron dominance. Now all she needed was to make her escape and watch the dominoes fall. As she slipped through the shadows, Maya couldn't help but feel a flicker of triumph. The heart of the machine was in her hands, and she was about to squeeze. Her path to extraction was a maze of quick decisions and quicker movements. At one junction, a door that should have been open was sealed shut. Without hesitation, Maya pulled a small, high-impact grenade from her belt, another of Nowak's gadgets, and placed it against the door. The explosion was muffled, with her body shielding the blast. When the smoke cleared, the way was open again, a testament to her readiness to use brute force when finesse failed. Through her earpiece, the static lessened momentarily, Eldridge's voice reaching her. "Rodriguez, you need to move faster. We're seeing activity that suggests they're onto you." "Copy that, Captain," Maya responded, her voice calm despite her quickening pace. "I'm on my way out." Maya's resolve never wavered. She remembered Eldridge's words about what they were fighting for, their humanity, their home, and let that fuel her strides. Meanwhile, on the bridge of the Neotech Indomitable was alive with a frenetic energy as Captain Eldridge oversaw the preparations for the imminent diversionary assault. The tactical screens flickered with vectors and trajectories, mapping out a dance of ships and artillery that was about to unfold against the Mechron fleet. "Align the forward batteries. I want crossfire at sectors 5 and 7. Keep them guessing," Eldridge commanded, his voice a firm anchor amidst the storm of activity. His executive officer, Commander Chen, coordinated the fleet's movements, her commands crisp and decisive. "All ships, initiate feint alpha. Draw their ships out of formation." Outside, the space around the Mechron fleet became a canvas of chaos. The human ships, smaller and more agile, darted in and out of the robotic fleet's rigid formations. The Indomitable, a behemoth compared to its fleetmates, barrel-rolled through space, its cannons blazing. The maneuvers were reckless, almost foolhardy, but underpinned by a sharp strategic acumen that only seasoned human captains could execute. Eldridge watched the battle unfold, his eyes calculating. "Time the next volley for when they realign. Hit them just before they settle," he directed, anticipating the enemy's movements. His strategy exploited the Mechron's reliance on patterns, turning their predictability into a liability. On the main deck, the crew worked with a synchronized efficiency that belied the intensity of their situation. Tactical Officer Liu called out incoming fire, her voice steady. "Brace for impact on starboard quarter." The ship shuddered as it absorbed the hit, shields flickering under the strain of the Mechron positron cannons. "Shields at 72% and holding, Captain," reported Engineer Nowak from his station. "Keep those shields up, and reroute auxiliary power to the aft cannons." "We're not done here," Eldridge responded, his gaze never leaving the tactical display. The Mechron fleet, unaccustomed to such dynamic opposition, faltered in their response. Their movements, usually so precise, became hesitant, their formations disrupted by the unpredictable volleys and feints of the human ships. Amid the tactical ballet, Eldridge found a moment to communicate with his fleet. "This is more than a fight for survival," he broadcasted, his voice cutting through the din of battle. "This is a testament to our ingenuity, our courage, and our will to endure. Let's show them what it means to stand against humanity." Cheering broke out across the bridge, the crew's morale buoyed by their captain's words. They were not just operators of a ship, they were part of a living, breathing entity that was fighting tooth and nail against an implacable foe. As the assault continued, the Indomitable and its sister ships wove through the Mechron lines, their guns never silent, their movements a series of calculated risks that paid off in holding the enemy's attention divided and disorganized. "Prepare for another run. Target their command ship," Eldridge ordered, pointing to a segment of the fleet that seemed to be coordinating the Mechron response. "If we shake them up there, it'll give Maya the opening she needs to get out." Commander Chen nodded, relaying the new set of commands. "All units, focus fire on grid mark Zeta 3. On my mark. 3, 2, 1, mark." A chorus of cannons fired in unison, the beams of energy streaking across space to hammer at the Mechron command unit. The ship staggered under the barrage, its return fire delayed by the sudden onslaught. Within the confines of the Mechron command ship, Maya raced against the ticking countdown as she navigated through the increasingly chaotic corridors. The alarms were now a constant blare, the ship's internal systems thrown into disarray by the imminent threat of the reactor detonation she had orchestrated. The ship felt alive, aware of its impending doom, corridors flashing with red warning lights, mechanical voices issuing orders in a sterile, emotionless cadence. Maya knew her path to the boarding torpedo was compromised, Mecrons swarmed the area, their programming now fully alert to the human saboteur in their midst. She needed an alternative, and fast. She sprinted towards the fighter bays, her movements fueled by a mix of adrenaline and the stark drive to survive. As she reached the bay, the door before her slid open, revealing a row of sleek metallic fighters, their designs sleek and powerful. Before she could board the ship, a Mecron suddenly blocked her path, firing its arm-mounted weapon. She skillfully dodged the barrage of fire, quickly drawing her own pistol to shoot at the robotic figure. Despite her bullets making it all the way through, the Mecron didn't flinch and slammed both its arms down on her. Bracing herself, she caught the Mecron's arms. Although powerful, they were nothing compared to the razor-faced creatures she had previously fought. With a determined smile, she ripped the robot's arms from its body, then leapt up and delivered a fierce kick to its head, sending it flying. Landing smoothly, she muttered, "That's for Earth as well." Then she jumped into the nearest fighter, slamming the manual release handle down with a grunt. Inside the cramped space of the fighter, Maya strapped herself in as the console in front of her lit up, a series of foreign symbols blinking rapidly. She bypassed the standard launch sequence with a few quick modifications to the wiring panel beneath her seat, a trick Nowak had shown her during their preparations. The fighter shuddered violently, then shot out from the command ship with a force that pressed her into her seat, the G-forces tugging at her with ruthless intensity. Outside, the stars spun wildly as the fighter careened away from the Mecron ship. Maya tried to orient herself, her eyes flicking across the pod's rudimentary sensor display. She watched as the distance between her and the Mecron ship rapidly increased, her escape not a moment too soon. Behind her, the command ship was a swelling light of impending destruction. Then, with a brilliance that turned night into day, the reactor exploded. The shockwave hit her pod, tossing it like a leaf in the wind. Systems inside whined and blinked out, the power fluctuating dangerously. Maya fought to keep her focus, her training keeping her hands steady even as her body wanted to brace for impact. The explosion ripped through the Mecron fleet, the chain reaction visible even as her fighter spun. Ships that were too close were caught in the blast, their structures failing, breaking apart under the stress. The command ship itself became a blossoming fireball, its once formidable silhouette now fracturing into pieces that drifted apart in the silent ballet of destruction. Maya's fighter finally stabilized, the power kicking in to correct its course. She took a deep breath, allowing herself a moment to absorb the success of her mission, despite the rough escape. Her gaze was drawn back to the devastation she had left behind. The Mecron fleet was in disarray, their coordination lost with the command ship's destruction. Relief washed over her, followed quickly by the steeling of her resolve. She wasn't out of danger yet. She needed to get back to the Indomitable, to her crew, and prepare for whatever came next. "Indomitable, this is Rodriguez," she broadcasted, her voice steady despite the earlier chaos. "Mission accomplished. I'm coming home." The response was static at first, then the crackle of a connection being made. "Rodriguez, this is Eldridge. We saw the fireworks. Good to hear you're still with us. We're picking up your signal. Hold tight. We're coming for you." As she waited for rescue, Maya watched the remnants of the Mecron fleet struggle to regroup, their movements sluggish, uncoordinated. She couldn't help but smile, a tired but triumphant grin spreading across her face. Humanity had struck a heavy blow today, thanks to their ingenuity, their bravery, and a little bit of improvised luck. She leaned back in her seat, watching the stars begin to steady in the sky as her fighter drifted. The abyss had tried to claim her, but she had escaped, her spirit as unyielded as ever. As the remnants of the Mecron fleet drifted aimlessly through space, a battered but unbroken Earth rallied its forces for a decisive counterattack. Aboard the Indomitable, the crew prepared for the engagement with a newfound vigor, the success of Maya's daring mission fueling their spirits. Captain Eldridge surveyed the tactical display, his eyes alight with the strategic possibilities now laid bare before them. "All units, this is our moment," he declared over the comm system, his voice resonant with the weight of impending victory. "Strike with all you have." In the midst of battle, Maya, newly rescued and standing once again on the bridge of the Indomitable, watched as their enemies faltered under the relentless human onslaught. The bridge crew around her worked with a synchronicity that spoke of hours of relentless training and shared hardship. Their actions not just military duty, but a personal vendetta against the invaders. Eldridge allowed himself a small smile, then turned to Maya. "Lieutenant, I think this victory speech is yours to give." Stepping up to the comm unit, Maya cleared her throat, her voice broadcasting to the crew and, through relayed feeds, to the entire world. "This is Lieutenant Rodriguez of the Indomitable. Today we stood together against a threat that sought to end our way of life. Today we fought not just for survival, but for our future, for Earth. And we won." Her voice, laden with emotion, resonated deeply with everyone who heard it. Around the world, people spilled into the streets, their faces alight with joy and relief. Fireworks filled the skies, a mimicry of the cosmic battle they had just witnessed, celebrating human resilience. Families embraced, strangers shared tears of joy, and leaders spoke of unity and the indomitable spirit of humanity. Back on Earth, Maya and the crew of the Indomitable returned as heroes. Parades filled the avenues of the major megacities, and the crew was decorated with honors. Maya, standing beside Eldridge and her fellow officers during a ceremony, felt the weight of their gaze, the admiration and gratitude of a planet they had saved. In quieter moments, away from the public's eye, the crew gathered on the deck of the Indomitable, looking out at the stars. "We did more than survive today," Maya reflected, her comrades nodding in agreement. "We proved that in the face of the abyss we push back, we endure, we thrive, and we will do it again." The celebration of victory was more than a display of joy. It was a reaffirmation of unity and strength. As night fell, the lights of Earth shone brighter than they had in the past months of relentless battle against the Mecron, each one a testament to the battles fought and won, both in space and within themselves. But they also knew these destroyers of the universe would not give up so soon. They would be back, more fierce than ever. It's now been several years since Sergeant Maya Rodriguez transformed into a neotech heavy cyborg. Once human, she now shares her fate with her best friend and mentor, Derek's son, who tragically died defending her during a mission. Now Maya is on a mission alone. She has to get to Outpost 17, an abandoned facility, nestled deep within the Triverse. To locate a small 3-man squad sent earlier to make contact with the synths, an alien species resembling tall, featureless humans, but entirely synthetic and far more technologically advanced than any cyborg we humans produce to this day. As Maya ventured through the darkness once again, to the portal facility, memories of her last visit here, actually her very first mission, surfaced. But this time was different. She was alone. Despite her formidable capabilities, Maya faces limitations. Her operational time is finite, and any significant damage she sustains cannot properly self-heal but instead requires maintenance. But regardless of that, she has to press on and succeed in her mission. Being a heavy cyborg instead of a regular soldier, the new Maya had undergone a significant upgrade. Her original human body simply couldn't handle the frequent dangers that they faced. When the opportunity to upgrade presented itself, she embraced it fully. The new body weighs around 400 pounds, with her armor adding another 200 pounds. Yet it moves as fluidly as any human body. This, thanks to AI operations that anticipate movement before her brain can consciously process it, ensuring the cyborg body doesn't feel cumbersome. Without these systems, even walking would be a struggle, much like the first generation of cyborgs who experienced a sluggish and lagging body. The upgraded version, however, is a technological marvel, seamlessly integrating advanced technology with the human brain. However, Maya hasn't quite warmed up to her new stature as a towering 7-foot giant. While there are some aesthetic differences granted to female cyborgs, the performance levels of their bodies are nearly identical to those of their male counterparts. However, she found herself distracted by her own thoughts, quickly returning to the present moment. The squad she was desperately searching for wasn't just a group of comrades, they were old friends, and crucially, her brother, Lieutenant Nico Rodriguez, was among them. They had gone missing, and were declared killed in action. Neotech Command had decided they were not worth the risk, halting any further search and rescue efforts. And so officially, Maya's mission didn't exist, and she knew she'd be branded a deserter once her unauthorized departure came to light. Fortunately, she knew some people who could keep her departure secret for a while. But by now, others were likely starting to take notice that she had gone. Without fully considering the consequences, she loaded up her gear and set out alone, directly defying orders. The squad she was searching for consisted of normal humans, considered expendable by their superiors. They had been sent to negotiate with the aliens regarding their synthetic biology and any other technology that could be acquired, but communication with the team had ceased. Upon stepping through the portal device that is a gateway into the Triverse, Maya was met with the sight of a vast, desolate megastructure. Checking her operational time limit, she noted only 102 hours remaining. It would have been ideal if she could have left fully prepared, but sneaking out with a functional antimatter reactor would have been out of the question. All cyborgs were restricted to battery power only when not on any official mission. Moreover, the specific biobatteries required for use within the Triverse drastically limited her time. If only regular batteries could be used, her operational time would extend tenfold. But as we all know, electricity other than that generated by bioorganic structures does not flow inside the Triverse megastructure, limiting the technology available. This is why Neotech heavy cyborgs contain two systems, an entire, technologically advanced antimatter-based system, and a secondary limited biocirculatory system, limiting the cyborg's capabilities. Just getting to the old megacity where the portal was located, the journey here had consumed 48 hours. While her AI could handle routine tasks while she rested, using it in enemy territory was risky and generally advised against, unless absolutely necessary. Maya understood that there was no time for a slow and cautious approach, especially without the usual support that accompanied these units. She was intimately familiar with the role, having been a support soldier herself in the past. But now, she was known as the Crimson Titan, a title bestowed upon her for her extraordinary bravery after she single-handedly defeated a Razorface, a fearsome Triverse monsters in hand-to-hand combat, a feat that was still considered nearly impossible by today's standards. With each passing hour, her operational time dwindled. As she navigated the vast megastructure, her singular focus was on finding her brother's squad. The urgency of her mission left no room for her to appreciate the remarkable sights around her. Yet she felt a familiar presence. She was being shadowed, as always, from a distance. Maya reached Outpost 17 with 82 hours remaining, a clear sign of the urgency of her mission. However, she found the outpost in complete disarray, looted and falling apart. It had clearly been decades since any humans had set foot there. The sight of blood in one of the barracks was ominous. As she scoured the base for any clues, her search turned up nothing, confirming the grim situation. Knowing she needed to continue her mission, but also recognizing the need for her brain to rest, Maya decided to sleep for 6 hours. During this time, her AI took over, operating in the background and plotting a course to the last known location of the synth's forward outpost. Meanwhile, a couple of hours passed by until Maya was abruptly awakened by a human voice piercing through the silence, captured by her sensors. The desperate cries for help left her with little choice. She had to respond, even if it might be a trap. This situation stirred memories of the past, particularly the incident that earned her the title Crimson Titan, a title she felt was unearned. While she had indeed fought a Razorface single-handedly, she had been severely damaged and knocked offline during the encounter. When she awoke, she found the Razorface dead before her. Although she insisted to the top brass that she hadn't defeated it alone, they still awarded her a medal for bravery, which she was forced to accept. Now, alone and far from any possible rescue, she was aware of her body's limitations. Despite its strength, it was no match for a Razorface whose razor-sharp teeth, while using sheer overpowering strength, could slice through her cyborg body as if it were mere wet paper tissue. However, before Maya left the base, she made a detour to the tech labs to pick up an experimental weapon that Omega Prime, an old colleague, owed her. She knew he wouldn't object to her taking it, even though it meant adding another court-martial to her record for desertion, this time for taking the only prototype. The last time she had seen the weapon, it was a cumbersome cannon with a backpack-sized antimatter power supply. Now, it had been refined to connect to a standard-sized palm port. However, the weapon's power demands were significant, and with her already limited power reserves, Maya hoped that firing it just once wouldn't deplete all of her stored bioenergy. As Maya approached the suspected location, she activated her dampeners. Better safe than sorry, as the saying goes. Glancing at her operational time, she noted 76 hours remained. On high alert for anything unusual, she spotted Sergeant Lara Jensen, wounded and in pain, crawling across an overpass. Lara's condition seemed like a classic setup for a trap. A wounded soldier cries out, luring rescuers into the open, where they could be easily targeted by a sniper. Despite the clear risk and the urgency tugging at her conscience, Maya decided to proceed cautiously. Her instincts screamed for her to rush to Lara's aid, but she knew that rushing could potentially endanger them both. So she kept her distance, waiting to see if the enemy would reveal themselves, ready to react to whatever came next. This careful approach, while against her instincts, was dictated by the harsh lessons learned from her many battles. As Maya switched her body into power-saving mode, she watched her friend Jensen in despair from a distance, unbeknownst to Lara that help was already near. The enemy's decision to expose Lara suggested they either anticipated a rescue team or knew Maya was already there, possibly having observed her earlier at the portal. The ethos of no soldier left behind still held true among the ranks, even if the higher-ups at Neotech, a massive corporation, didn't always uphold those values. Hours later, a gunshot rang out, its sound unmistakably that of a pre-Mechron Earth-era weapon. Lara buckled over in pain, her screams pleading for help. Unable to restrain herself any longer and driven past her limit, Maya acted. The AI calculating bullet trajectories in a split second, she identified the source, a small window slit across the open space. As she spotted a barrel retracting, she knew she had to move quickly. Swiftly rushing towards the location, she didn't see any entrances, so. With a single leap, Maya crossed the vast distance and burst through the wall of the hideout, ignoring any damage to herself, catching the assailants off guard. To her surprise, the attackers were synths, which was peculiar given the typically friendly relations between humans and synths. As Maya faced her assailants, she noticed they were armed with their typical flechette weapons, generally used for hunting rather than destruction. These weapons were designed for precision, capable of maiming or outright killing with a single shot to the head. Even with her cyborg-reinforced skull, Maya knew a direct hit would be fatal. Reacting swiftly, she closed the distance to minimize their advantage, but not without cost. 2 flechettes pierced her torso, slicing straight through her. Good. Let the nanobots repair that damage, Maya thought to herself, relying on her own internal repair systems to handle the injury as she continued her advance, determined to overcome her foes and secure the safety of her friend. Using the full weight of her 600-pound frame, plus the momentum from her charge through the air and minus the wall, Maya delivered a devastating punch to the first synth. The force was so great that its head was severed, sending it flying, synthetic fluids splattering in all directions. The impact caused damage to her own fist and arm, as she had disengaged her safety protocols in the heat of the confrontation to make up for her low-power bio mode she was operating in. The second synth was about to fire his flechette gun when Maya, acting swiftly, grabbed the barrel. With minimal effort, she redirected it under his chin. The realization of his imminent doom flickered across his synthetic eyes as the gun emitted a final shriek. The expression, if one could call it that, was unmistakably one of recognition of his fatal error. Meanwhile, the last synth was struggling with a more archaic earth weapon. As it frantically tried to aim and fire, Maya seemed nothing short of a super soldier to them. Despite their synthetic nature, these beings had biological constraints. Maya, however, operated without such limitations, her entire body made to be a weapon. Bullets harmlessly bounced off her heavy armor as she charged at him, slamming the synth through a wall and into what appeared to be a chasm. His screams echoed down into the depths, ending with a faint, barely audible thud. Peering over the edge, Maya saw the synth still moving, albeit heavily damaged and likely not far from deactivation. It was a small mercy of their synthetic design that they didn't have internal organs to rupture. They could linger on, even in severe damage. Rushing over to Jensen, Maya found her friend still conscious but barely clinging to life. With urgency in her fading voice, Jensen murmured, "Nico knew you would be coming for us. He was right. I shouldn't have." Her words trailed off as she attempted an apology. "I am so sorry." But before she could finish, Jensen passed away. In that moment, a harsh realization hit Maya. She had arrived too late. Reflecting on her earlier hesitation, considering the lethal flechette rifles, Maya understood the tactical decision. Acting impulsively on emotion could have led to both of their deaths. Yet, the weight of her friend's demise settled heavily upon her. mixing grief with the cold calculations of battlefield decisions. Maya stood, looking down at her friend with a heavy heart. "I'm not a hero, Lara. I'm sorry too," she said softly, her voice tinged with regret. "I'm so sorry. All this tech, all this power, and I can't even save a friend." With 70 hours of power remaining after this exertion, Maya's internal computer updated her status. There was still time left, she thought to herself, but the weight of the situation dulled the comfort that might have offered. She then turned her attention to the last synth, the one she hadn't forgotten about. Jumping down, she landed with a heavy thud. The synth, having recovered somewhat, made a break for it. Maya watched him. "Just a dumb kid," she quipped, a mix of empathy and bitterness in her tone. The synth's desperate attempt to escape was futile, and Maya prepared to end the chase quickly, all the while grappling with the harsh realities of her existence and the limitations of her formidable capabilities. Maya approached him with a deliberate calm. She lifted him effortlessly with one hand, her face strained as she fought to contain her emotions. Devoid of tear ducts, Maya couldn't cry for her friend, but her anguish was palpable. As the synth pleaded for his life, she retorted sharply, "How many times did my friend plead for hers?" In the synth's eyes, there was a dawning realization of his inevitable fate. He wasn't going to escape. Maya harbored a cold desire to extinguish the hope he clung to, wanting him to experience the fear and despair her friend had felt waiting on the overpass, not knowing if she would survive. Despite her formidable exterior and battlefield prowess, Maya had always harbored a softer side, always hoping for better outcomes. Yet war seldom yielded them. War was cruel, and its lessons were harsh, teaching her time and again that even with all her power, she could not always alter the harsh realities of conflict. She let go of the synth, thinking he caught a break, that he had found a fleeting chance at life. Maya casually turned away. However, her detachment was a ruse. Activating a shoulder-mounted weapon, she silently targeted the fleeing figure. The weapon, equipped with a limited supply of 4 micro-missiles, locked onto its target swiftly. A soft whoosh followed by an explosion shattered the quiet, scattering pieces of the synth across the area. The act didn't bring Maya any solace. Her friend's loss still weighed heavily on her, and her attempt at humor felt hollow. "That was for my friend," she said angrily, the joke tinged with bitterness. This moment was a harsh reminder of the brutal realities she faced. It was a stern lesson Maya would carry with her as she continued her journey. Following the tracks in reverse, she soon arrived at one of the entrances to their city. With 62 hours of operational time left, the weight of her mission pressed on her, each step forward shaded by the memories of what had been lost and the relentless demands of war. Entering the alien city was surprisingly easy, which Maya found unsettling. Given the presence of dangerous creatures like razorfaces in this world, she expected robust security measures. Instead, all she encountered was a minor light barrier that seemed purely decorative, doing nothing to her knowledge as she crossed it. Once inside, Maya adopted stealth as her strategy, at least until she could locate the other 2 members of her team. It didn't take long for her to find one of them. Leon was in the town square, but it was a horrific scene. He was tied up and had been visibly dissected, his body displayed for what appeared to be the aliens' macabre curiosity. To them, a body with organs was likely as bizarre as their organless bodies were to humans. Maya couldn't help but wonder what had shifted their relationship from allies to this dark hostility. Finding answers would have been a priority to Neotech, but to her, the urgency to locate her brother overshadowed anything else. Driven by a blend of desperation and determination, Maya pressed on, discarding caution. The familiar layout of the city, due to having detailed schematics, aided her search. After another 10 hours, she finally found her brother. With her knowledge of its layout, she moved efficiently, but the clock was ticking. Only 52 hours remained on her operational timer, dangerously close to the point where returning to the portal, let alone back to her own city, might become impossible. Shortly after Maya found her brother, the city erupted into chaos. Alarms blared and explosions shook the ground, creating a diversion that Maya used to her advantage. Like a ghost, she slipped out of the city, her unconscious brother cradled in one arm, the experimental positron pistol ready in the other. However, as she neared the city's edge, an unexpected obstacle appeared, a synth loader. This heavy mech, ostensibly not designed for combat, blocked her path, challenging human knowledge that synths had nothing that could match a heavy cyborg in combat. As she confronted this first mech, a second one suddenly crashed down towards her. Reacting swiftly, Maya barely rolled away in time to avoid being crushed. Setting her brother down carefully, she reassured him with a determined, "I'll be right back, little brother. Don't go anywhere." Prepared to defend both their lives, Maya faced the looming mechanical threats, ready to fight her way out and ensure their escape. As the synthetic loader mech slammed its heavy arm down near Maya, she countered with a forceful punch, expecting the impact to send it reeling backward. However, striking the loader felt like hitting a truck tire. The mech absorbed the entire impact without a hint of damage. Moments later, the loader retaliated with a counterpunch that sent Maya flying back into a wall. The impact was severe. Her systems beeped with warnings as critical damage was reported to her internal systems. Even her artificial organs had sustained damage. It was clear these were no ordinary loaders. They were fully equipped killing machines. As Maya grappled with this realization, a third mech joined the fray, brandishing what appeared to be a sword. The sight of it sent additional alarms blaring through her system, escalating the threat level dramatically. Hesitant to use her experimental positron pistol but running out of options, Maya knew she had to act. The sword-wielding synth mech represented an immediate and grave danger, likely capable of cleaving her body in half. With a grim resolve, she aimed the pistol at the closest mech, preparing to defend herself against overwhelming odds. They didn't even react to her threat, pure hubris. When Maya pulled the trigger of the experimental positron pistol, the weapon began to charge, drawing an immense amount of power and nearly overloading her circuits. In just a microsecond, it consumed 10 hours of her operating power, and yet the weapon had only reached 7% of its full charge. Despite this, she released the trigger, unleashing a blast that was on par with the one Omega Prime had demonstrated during their previous encounters with Razor Faces. The recoil from the discharge violently threw her back against the wall once more. As her AI reported multiple microfractures detected in right arm, the blast took the loaders by surprise. It disintegrated the upper halves of two loaders and sent destructive energy piercing through walls for miles beyond through the city, dramatically demonstrating the weapon's raw power, even at minimal charge. The sword of the third loader clattered to the ground as it was taken back by the power of the pistol. Seizing the moment, Maya fired again, targeting the third loader and further depleting her energy reserves. With 32 hours of power left, she knew she had to move quickly. She picked up her brother, grabbed the dropped sword, and hastened her escape. The weapon had given her a critical advantage. The loaders hadn't anticipated the humans wielding such a destructive force. This unexpected edge allowed her and her brother a chance to get out of the hostile area, holding on to the slim hope of making it back to safety. A day later, it was revealed that Lieutenant Nico Rodriguez was found alive yet unconscious in the ruins of the first megacity of old, a place so fraught with past horrors that its name is seldom spoken. His distress beacon was activated, signaling his location for a pickup. What they found was the aftermath of a violent conflict that had spilled through the portal from another world. The area was littered with the scattered remnants of a heavy cyborg. Too many pieces for there to be any hope that Maya had survived the encounter, her head and torso missing. Around these grim tokens of battle lay the remains of numerous synths, each bearing the marks of a positron weapon or slashed into fine pieces. The scale of destruction painted a vivid picture of a desperate, fierce fight. It was theorized that the synths had managed to track her down. With only a dwindling reserve of battery power left, Maya would have been forced to economize every last bit of energy. But when the synths finally caught up to her, she fought with relentless fury, determined to protect her brother at all costs. The encounter, though tragic, showcased her bravery and determination in the face of overwhelming odds. This last stand, marked by her heroic efforts to safeguard her brother, would later be commemorated as Operation Starfall. The title, while carrying the weight of loss, also honored Maya's valiant resistance against formidable foes, making her a symbol of courage and sacrifice. Neotech recovered both the experimental positron pistol and a synth sword, items that had been expertly concealed by Maya. Although they had not been specifically tasked with retrieving this exact artifact, the mission was broadly aimed at acquiring any advanced technology that could provide a strategic advantage. Despite her previous designation as a rogue, Maya's actions led to a re-evaluation of her status. The valuable assets she recovered posthumously played a crucial role in this change. Her court-martials were dismissed, and she was granted a full pardon, along with a posthumous promotion, recognizing her ultimate sacrifice and the completion of the mission initially assigned to her brother. Yet despite these honors, Neotech deemed another rescue mission too perilous to undertake. Maya was officially declared missing in action. Her brother Nico, upon fully recovering, faced his own set of challenges. His request for cyborg enhancement was denied, likely due to fears within Neotech that he might use such enhancements to undertake a perilous search for his sister. Feeling constrained and desperate, he eventually left the Neo military after exhausting all formal avenues to pursue her whereabouts. Driven by the same indomitable spirit as his sister, Nico sought alternative paths to locate her. However, his relentless quest ultimately led to his own disappearance, adding another layer of mystery and unresolved devotion to the family's saga. His actions mirrored the resolve and determination Maya herself had shown, underscoring a family bond driven by loyalty and the unyielding pursuit of their reunion. While Maya's story is far from concluded, the paths of the siblings would tragically never cross again. Their separate journeys, marked by courage and a relentless pursuit of each other, would continue to unfold within the expansive and mysterious Triverse. But that would be a story for another time. If you've stuck with me up to this point, a heartfelt thank you. I'd also like to take a moment to remind you that my entire channel is dedicated to the Triverse and its enthralling Mechron mechanoid saga. While many of the stories stand alone, allowing you to dive in at any point, crafting these narratives takes about 4 or 5 days each, so your patience is greatly appreciated. If you find yourself enjoying what you see, consider exploring more of my videos. Each one, in its own unique way, weaves together more of the overarching story I'm telling.